welcome back to Intermediate Algebra. Here we have section 2.5. Now we get to solve equations that have absolute values in them. So these really aren't too bad. You're going to have to keep a few things in mind as we go through them. You're going to have to be careful, but they work. They're not that bad. We can do these. All right, so let's start with this super simple example of the absolute value of x is equal to 3. Now, remember, what we're looking for is any value of x here that will make a true statement. So certainly if we plug in 3, the absolute value of 3 is equal to 3, that works. But there's a second solution. Because remember, absolute value always spits out a positive number. So if x is negative 3, if you plug in negative 3, the absolute value of negative 3 is also 3. So here we can see that we have two solutions, and that's really going to kind of be the key to this whole thing. So now over here I have some steps for you to go through, and then we'll look at some examples, and we'll even see some that just don't have any solution at all. And we'll see what that looks like when we get there. All right, so steps. Step 1, get the absolute value by itself. So in this case, I already had the absolute value by itself. We'll look at an example where that's not the case here in just a couple minutes. Step 2, split it up. There's going to be one where the inside is equal to the positive and one where the inside is equal to the negative value. Because remember, if the inside ends up, in this case, if the x ended up as positive 3, that's going to work. Or if x was negative 3, that would also end up working. So there's going to be two parts, a positive and negative part. That's the split. Step 3, solve. You're going to solve both of those. You're going to get two solutions. And step 4, that's step 4. There are usually two solutions. So there you go. Let's look at some examples. Key step. I cannot stress this enough, okay? So please pay attention. Get the absolute value alone first. If you don't, you will get one answer that is correct and one that is wrong. It'll be super easy for me to grade, but you don't want to be wrong. So get the absolute value by itself first. We'll see an example. All right, let's do some examples. All right, so I have two examples here for us to do. The first one's the more straightforward of the two. The second one is going to really emphasize that getting the absolute value by itself first. So let's start with the first one that I have. Absolute value of 3x minus 4 is equal to 16. So this will be true if the inside is either equal to positive 16 or the inside is equal to negative 16. Okay, so since the absolute value is by itself, if the inside ends up either positive or negative 16, we get a true statement, and those are our solutions. So I just set up two separate little equations. See, I told you that this is not a big deal. We can do this, right? We can solve little linear equations. So I have it. I add 4 to both sides, which gives me 3x is equal to 20. Divide both sides by 3. The division's ugly, but hey, that's okay. We get an answer of 20 over 3. I like fractions, so it's a good answer. For the other one, I add my 4, which gives me negative 12. Again, be careful with those signs. Watch out for those. Divide both sides by 3, and we get x is equal to negative 4. Two perfectly good solutions. There should technically be an or here in the middle, although that's not the kind of thing I would probably mark you off for. But we do have two really fantastic solutions here. All right, the second one. Please notice this one is a mess. Right? This one has a lot more stuff going on. I've got a 2 outside of the absolute value. I've got a plus 3 over here. I can't split this into two parts until that absolute value is by itself. Again, I mentioned this just a minute ago. I'm going to say it again. If you split it right here at the beginning, you will get one answer that is correct and one that is not. So please be careful. Okay? Please try to remember this, okay? Because I absolutely would do something like this to you on a test. All right. So what do? Well, okay, I got to get the absolute value by itself, so I'm going to start by subtracting 3. No big deal. Subtract 3, 19 minus 3 is 16. We're okay so far. Now, I'm not going to use the distributive property because multiplication gets a little bit wonky with absolute values sometimes. So instead, I'm just going to divide both sides by 2. That will get rid of the 2 that's out front. 16 divided by 2 is 8. Now I have the absolute value by itself. So now, and only now, can I go ahead and split it up. Now my inside is equal to 8, or my inside is equal to negative 8. There are my two possibilities. So I solve them. you'll notice I forgot to show the addition of 5 to both sides. By the way, if you're actually doing this and taking my class, when you take my test, please show all of your work. That's how you get partial credit. Partial credit is awesome because then if something goofy goes wrong, I can give you, 4 out of 5 points instead of 0. So show me your work. That's always good. Anyway, so we got rid of the 5. I divide both sides by 2, and I get x is equal to 13 over 2. Divide both sides by 2, and x is a negative 3/2. And there we go. Those are our solutions. So these are two pretty standard equations with absolute values. They really are pretty straightforward. Just remember, you have to get it by itself first. If you have more mess with your absolute value, you've got to clear everything else away first. All right, let's look at a couple of examples that are maybe just a little bit weirder. Here we go. Okay, for my last two examples, I have this first one, and it looks pretty simple to begin with. We have the absolute value of negative 7x minus 5, and then it's equal to a negative 3. Now, we have negatives inside of my absolute value, not a problem at all. We could work with that. What we can't work with is this negative 3 on the other side. Remember, whatever goes into an absolute value has to come out as a positive number, which means no matter what you pick for x, no matter what you pick, you can't get it to give you a negative 3 because when you take the absolute value, so if you plug that number in, whatever it is, you multiply by negative 7, you subtract 5, it doesn't matter because when you take the absolute value, it's going to end up as a positive instead of a negative. So that's absolutely impossible. It's not possible. So you'll see here I have a circle with a line through it. That means there's no solution, or you can just write out no solution. Either one. So this one's not possible. Hence the reason I called it a little bit weird. All right, let's look at the other one. The other one has x's in both sides and absolute values on both sides. That's fun. I think so, but you can be forgiven if you think it's a little strange maybe. That's okay. I like it. So anyway, here we go. Two possibilities again. This time, since I have absolute values on both sides, the two things on the inside can just be equal to each other. Okay, positive or negative, whatever's inside there. If they come out equal, when you take their absolute values, they're going to be equal to each other. So that one's pretty straightforward. We subtract x, but weird thing happens. If we subtract x, all the x's in this case, now this won't always happen, but in this case, all the x's go away. I'm left with negative 2 is equal to 4. That's not possible. Since it's not possible, we say no solution for that one. But there is a second possibility. The two things on the inside, the x minus 2 and the x plus 4, can be opposites of each other. So we can write that by saying that x minus 2 is equal to the opposite of x plus 4. And now when we solve this one's going to work for us. So I distribute the negative sign. I get x minus 2 is equal to negative x minus 4. I'm going to add x to both sides to get rid of this negative x on the right. Gives me 2x minus 2 is equal to negative 4. Add the 2, divide by 2, and I end up with x is equal to negative 1. And that is a perfectly good answer. We can get a negative solution for x. That's okay. Okay. When you plug it in, negative 1 minus 2, that's negative 3. Absolute value of negative 3, there's your positive 3. Same thing here, negative 1 plus 4, that's 3. Absolute value of 3 is 3. They're the same thing. So we can get a negative number out. We just can't have our absolute value equal to a negative. So please be careful of those. And there you go. That is section 5. So have a wonderful day. Bye.